Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Swallowed Star 2 Land of Origin Part 56 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. In the treasure domain, infinite space, Luophone transformed into a streak of flowing light, flying at a speed hundreds of times faster than when he first arrived in the infinite space. And this was only the normal speed for traveling. This treasure domain is quite occupied in places with slightly more native creatures. If I want to establish my own territory, I must head to the most remote and desolate areas. Luophone decided on a direction and continued on his way. In places with many native creatures, a single region might have over 100 of them, enough for several godly kings to join forces and take it over. But in the remote and desolate lands, there might only be 1 or 2 native creatures in a large area. Because they are so few, they are only suitable for individual occupation. The biggest danger of occupying alone is encountering other invaders. Luophone had also been under the protection of Emperor Ming, cultivating in solitude for 100 eras before venturing out on his own. Whoosh! Luohe? This is the territory of the Flame Wind Ancient Country's imperial clan. Please leave. This is the domain of the Thunder Ancient Country's imperial clan. Leave quickly. On his journey, Luophone tried his best to avoid areas occupied by major powers. When encountering immense consciousness, he would be warned and expelled. He had never again encountered anyone as willing to give him a piece of land as Emperor Ming was. After flying for a long time, he finally reached his destination. 100 Mist Lake. Luophone looked at the vast endless lake in front of him, with mist wafting about. 100 Mist Lake, extremely vast. In the earliest times, there were over 100 native creatures here. Later, the monarch of the Thunder Ancient Country monopolized this place, causing the number of native creatures here to continually decrease. Now, there are probably only a handful of creatures in the entire lake, Luophone pondered. This was a place that had been occupied by various powers. Because there were too few creatures and the area was too vast, major powers had lost interest. It was only lone cultivators like Luophone who would be interested. Begin a thorough investigation of 100 Mist Lake. Eternal life, unending death. Divide. With a single thought from Luophone, 9 avatars split off, flying in all directions, carefully searching for native creatures within the misty expanse. In infinite space, 19 origin great Daos are sealed. To perform truly powerful moves, one must carve out new paths for themselves. Over these past 100 eras, Luophone had also been attempting to open up the great Tao of life and death. This cultivation had progressed by leaps and bounds. His speed was much faster than when he contemplated the great Tao of life origin and the great Tao of destruction origin. The reason for such a swiftness is multifaceted. Firstly, Luophone had already reached the pinnacle of primal chaos in both life and destruction pathways. With enough profound accumulation, merging into the great Tao of life and death made the comprehension naturally smooth. Secondly, deep in Luophone's heart, he truly believed that life and death are one, which is the path his spirit acknowledged. When becoming an eternal true God, Luophone's enlightenment was on the source of life and death. The first primal chaos realm move Luophone conceived was a blend of life and death, the blade technique, heart honing. It was just because the supreme laws did not include the great Tao of life and death origin that Luophone temporarily set it aside to concentrate on the other two. After all, both the great Tao of life origin and the great Tao of destruction origin existed and could be contemplated and observed. In Luophone's heart, these two origin great Taos are both fundamental and nourishment. Ultimately, they are both for the sake of opening up his own great Tao of life and death. The great Tao of life and death is indeed much more powerful, Luophone thought. With no clear origin great Tao to refer to, Luophone purely followed his heart, starting to merge some insights from the Taos of life and destruction and naturally conceived many moves. I have been in the land of origin for about 160 eras. These past 100 eras have been the time of my deepest accumulations. Luophone was clear about his own progress. The great Tao of life and death is the integrated and evolved version of the two pathways of life and destruction, containing many of their advantages. But its downside is clear. the absence of a clear Tao means that Luo Feng does not know what the branches of the Great Tao are. So far, he has conceived several Godly King-level secret techniques in the Great Tao of Life and Death, yet he still hasn't grasped a complete branch of the Great Tao of Life and Death. Life has 6 branches, destruction has 6 branches, but Luo Feng can clearly watch and has a definite direction. Luo Feng feels that if he tries deliberately, he fears he could achieve the Godly King level within one era. But Luo Feng has a lot of patience. He follows the guidance of the Creator from the heritage of world life form. Focusing on honing his perception as the foundation, he continuously accumulates until he breaks through naturally. He does not pursue breakthroughs deliberately. The encounter in infinite space made me comprehend the Great Tao of Life and Death sooner. Clearly, the Great Tao of Life and Death indeed suits me better than life or destruction, Luo Feng surmised within his heart, having guessed this earlier since he always believed life and death are one, and without one, it would be incomplete. From this century of cultivation, it can be seen that practicing the Great Tao of Life and Death is to come from behind and overtake. Without specific secret techniques, without Great Tao enlightenment. Yet, his strength in the aspect of the Great Tao of Life and Death is stronger than the other two. This also proves one point: the path that suits oneself best is the one that advances the fastest, Luo Feng thought. Godly kings usually focus on a single origin Great Tao. Very few cultivate 2 of them. Because each cultivator has their own spiritual belief. Some cognitions inherently negate certain Great Taos, and even develop antipathy for some paths. Forcing comprehension of them naturally results in extremely low efficiency. Like the mountain-sitting guest, who has his own path to follow. He had never been interested in controlling the primordial cosmos or facing the Great Tao of Life origin, nor had he ever attempted to do so. I've completed the investigation. Using the technique of avatars, Luo Feng finally finished scouting 100 Mist Lake. Now, 2 godly kings occupy separate regions of 100 Mist Lake. Beyond their territories, there are 3 indigenous creatures, all quite distant from each other. Among these 3 indigenous creatures, 2 are relatively ordinary, similar to those I've engaged with before. But one is extremely powerful. It only sustained minor injuries despite my direct use of the Lai Yuan technique. These 3 indigenous creatures were 1 strong and 2 weak. Luo Feng was quite satisfied. He hoped for more powerful spiritual beings to hone himself. It'll be these 3. Although the 3 indigenous creatures were quite far apart, Luo Feng decided to take over all their regions. Using the technique of avatars, I shall occupy each indigenous creature's territory. Luo Feng's true body and his 2 avatars scattered, each occupying the territory of 1 indigenous creature. Asterisk 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 asterisk. In Flame Wind Ancient Country, within Windjong City, this place was also the ancestral land of the royal family, Zhong family, where generations of the clan's descendants thrived and lived. Ha ha, brother Luo-sa, please. Yunji becoming Daoist couple with Moyu Qingyang is also a connection between our Zhong family and Great Saint Luo He. Inside a grand hall of the Zhong family, the core leadership warmly hosted Morosa and Moyu Qingyang. Inside the hall, the 2 primal chaos overlords of the Zhong family made their appearance, sitting at the main table with Morosa, chatting and laughing with ease, showing a harmonious atmosphere. This lad Qingyang is a disciple of my master, and also my disciple, Morosa chuckled. Once Yunji and Qingyang become a Daoist couple, she will be like my half-disciple, too. Moyu Qingyang and Zhong Yunj sat at the lower end of the table, the 2 of them being the younger generation, just listened quietly. It seems both parties are getting along very well. Moyu Qingyang was pleased to see this scene. On his first visit to the Zhong family, they disapproved of him. But in the end, they welcomed him warmly. Although Zhong Yunj was from a main branch of the Zhong family, with the royal family having countless descendants, she was just one eternal true god among tens of thousands within the royal family and hence, not very conspicuous. I am not given much attention in the clan, Zhong Yunj transmitted her voice. The presence of the 2 primal chaos overlords is actually because of your status. It was quite significant whenever a primal chaos overlord made an appearance. As for the highest-ranking member of the Zhong family, the Wind Chapter God King, after all being a godly king, he did not need to get involved in the matter of two junior eternal true gods becoming a Daoist couple. Even if Great Saint Luo He were to become a godly king and truly turn into an overlord-level existence, the Wind Chapter God King did not need to overly curry favor. He had his own influence rooted in Flame Wind ancient country. Qingyang, from now on we are family, said Yun Ji's father warmly. As an ordinary eternal true god, his status within the clan was far less than those from the Law lineage. But today, he was rather prominent. Even the two old primal chaos overlords were amiable towards him. Moyu Qingyang showed no hint of arrogance. He was well aware of his position. It was only through his second master's careful guidance that he became a true god of void space via the Law lineage. Later on, with the help of his master and second master's resources, he was able to follow the bloodline cultivation system and become an eternal true god. In terms of cultivation potential, he indeed had little. His current status was purely because he was the only disciple of his master and second master. What was there to be proud of? Seeing this, Zhong Yunt also revealed a smile. She was committed to Moyu Qingyang as her Daoist couple. When she was first tasked with the royal family's trade in Xiangjie City and met Moyu Qingyang, he was flattered by all sides and held a very high status there. After spending more time together, she found Moyu Qingyang to be genuine, which gradually led her to develop feelings. To have reached eternal true god and still have no Daoist couple showed her intentions. Without someone suitable, she would prefer to cultivate alone forever. Moyu Qingyang felt the same way. Both had reached eternal true god level before choosing a Daoist couple. In the Treasure Land Infinite Space, as his disciple was about to get married, Luo Feng, as his master, remained wholly focused on cultivation. He was currently sitting cross-legged on an island in the middle of a lake, performing the Great Destruction heart-refining technique to eradicate the spiritual pollution within himself. The stronger the spiritual beings, the stronger their corruption, he mused. Luo Feng could feel the effect on himself, as even his attempts to comprehend the great Tao's were repeatedly disrupted by the spiritual pollution. Rumble tilde tilde tilde. Suddenly, a stream of consciousness touched the expanse of Luo Feng's awareness. This is my territory, leave immediately, Luo Feng conveyed his consciousness. Your territory? I've killed this indigenous creature's ancestor countless times. It has always been my place. That spiritual will, also reaching the second realm of godly king level, was embodied by a large figure in a yellow robe standing in the distance, looking at the island with a sneer. So it's Luo He. You, a transcendence of primal chaos realm, dare to dispute territory with me, an elder? If you don't want to die, then get lost quickly. Looking at him, Luo Feng's eyes grew cold. Let's see how much skill you, at the first realm of godly king, truly have in this infinite space. Luo Feng looked at the immense figure in the yellow robe before him, his heart somewhat astonished. I hadn't expected that my first encounter with a godly king from the Shi Kingdom on the land of origin would be in the infinite space, a treasure site left by Yuan. Luo Feng had learned about each godly king on the surface of the land of origin, so he naturally recognized at first glance that this figure in the yellow robe was one of the 5 godly kings of the Shi Kingdom, the Wuxiang Elder. Among the 5 godly kings of the Shi Kingdom, the Wuxiang Elder ranked second in strength. The early leaders of the Shi Kingdom were the Emperor of Tiankuan, the Wuxiang Elder, and the ancestor of the Blade Demon. Originally, it was these 3 who had annihilated the Jin state and were the deeply hated enemies of the mountain-sitting guest. The Emperor of Tiankuan was at the second realm of Godly King. The Wuxiang Elder was at the very limits of the first realm of Godly King, even more powerful than the Elder of Snow Realm. The ancestor of the Blade Demon was also a remarkably strong existence at the first realm of Godly King. Elder Brother helped me become a peripheral member of the Two Realms Palace, accumulating a great amount of merit points just to exchange for a single opportunity to enter this treasure site. This Luo He, a mere transcendence of the primal chaos realm, could enter as well, the huge figure in the yellow robe said as he looked at Luo Feng, filled with jealousy and quite displeased. He was very aware of how much he had sacrificed to enter this treasure site. Do I have a few tricks up my sleeve? The Wuxiang Elder sneered at Luo Feng, since you are courting death, I shall satisfy you. Once a body in infinite space perished, to enter again? That would require a new qualification, another use of the token. Every available slot to enter the treasure site was extremely precious. HMPH. Luo Feng looked at him, likewise harboring a killing intent. With his current strength, he could do nothing against the three sovereigns of the Shi Kingdom. But he didn't mind destroying the opponent's body in infinite space, cutting off one opportunity for him. The two stood opposite each other, neither backing down. He's quite confident. Underneath his domineering attitude, the Wuxiang elder was also very cautious. He hasn't become a godly king in the outside world, so how high could his realm possibly be in infinite space when blazing a new path? Infinite space sealed off 19 origin great Daos, excluding spiritual will. Normal combat relied on blazing new paths. Even an emperor's newly blazed paths might not be particularly strong. This was also why the Wuxiang elder was quite confident. He had blazed new paths, and though he hadn't comprehended a complete branch of the great Tao, he had conceived two godly king-level secret techniques. Blazing new paths was like this, without clear great Tao references. Generally, one needed to comprehend multiple godly king-level methods before one could derive a branch of the great Tao. Annihilate. Under the Wuxiang elder's cautious demeanor, with a thought, an invisible force ignited upon Luo Feng's body. Hiss 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 tilde tilde tilde. Colorless, transparent flames scorched Luo Feng's body and his spiritual will. This is the flame of sin, a new great Tao rooted in the origin Tao of the infinite that I have blazed. The Wuxiang elder was very confident, and although he hadn't mastered a complete branch of the great Tao, he was confident in the power of the flame of sin. This flame. Luo Feng was also somewhat shocked. The flame of sin was too bizarre. He hadn't seen the opponent make a move, yet colorless flames spontaneously appeared and burned both his physical body and spiritual will. His spiritual will was already powerful, even without the Lai Yuan technique, and at this moment, it wasn't something the flame of sin could extinguish. Under the protection of the Lai Yuan technique, the scorching of the spiritual will only felt soothing to Luo Feng. But the physical body was somewhat problematic. Hiss hiss hiss. Luo Feng's physical body was very special, full of endless vitality, yet constantly grinding down its own power. It was somewhat similar to the Great Destruction heart refining technique, constantly honing its own body. Parts that couldn't endure were annihilated, and afterward, new parts were born. This was also an understanding from Luo Feng's path within the Great Tao of life and death, concluding the Godly King level body refining method, life and death body. Now being scorched by the flame of sin, for Luo Feng, was also a kind of refining for the physique, the weaker parts naturally and actively destroyed, and vitality transformed, allowing new power to be reborn. In just moments, the constantly rejuvenating body rapidly enhanced its resistance against the flame of sin. Pure life is not resilient enough. Only by continuously annihilating the weak, preserving the strong, can the physique evolve stronger. Luo Feng was very satisfied with the power of the newly comprehended life and death body. Luo Feng looked at the Wuxiang elder. Wuxiang godly king, is it my turn yet? You. The Wuxiang elder, seeing that Luo Feng could withstand the flame of sin, could not help but be astonished. At this moment, Luo Feng stood in his place, already waving his hand. Palm as a blade. The blade light was refined as silk, containing both the resilience of life and the destructive force of cutting in two. This strike was precisely the Godly King level blade technique, one strike two divisions. Whiz! The blade light flashed and dissipated, like a silken thread slicing through the body of the Wuxiang elder, who couldn't dodge in time. Whoosh! The Wuxiang elder turned into a colorless flame. Enduring this strike, he felt the remaining blade force slicing through his body, filled with resilience, continuously wearing down his physique. He exerted himself to suppress it, and it took a moment or two for the blade force within the flame body to be completely annihilated. You, being of the primal chaos realm, have blazed new paths that reach the Godly King level. The Wuxiang elder, now a flame body, truly couldn't believe it. Why haven't you become a Godly King already with your original paths? No rush. Luo Feng looked at him. Wuxiang Godly King, this body of yours is quite interesting, but how many strikes can you endure from me? Life unending. Luo Feng's body suddenly split apart, instantly dividing into as many as 36 avatars. Avatars? The Wuxiang elder knew trouble was coming. he must have avatars hidden elsewhere if he can exert avatars even with paths newly blazed in infinite space. Trying to cut off his opportunities in infinite space is nearly impossible. Chop! Luo Feng's 36 avatars all simultaneously swung their arms, the hand blades chopping down. With the strength of Luo Feng's spiritual will, he could have exerted this Godly King-level blade technique using over 50 avatars. But 36 avatars cooperating was precisely enough to form a blade formation. One strike, two divisions, life and death reincarnation. The 36 Luo Feng simultaneously swung their hand blades, the 36 silky blade lights immediately enveloping the body of the Wuxiang elder like a heavenly net, continuously slicing. No, as the Wuxiang elder was slaughtered by the heavenly net-like blade lights, he quickly noticed his flame body rapidly depleting. The power of the blade force was terrifying. While its destructive power was formidable, it was also filled with resilience. These blade forces would also return to continue the slaughter again and again, like an endless reincarnation. Stop! No matter where the Wuxiang elder tried to flee, those 36 blade lights enveloped him like a heavenly net, constantly slaughtering him. Stop, let's talk. I am willing to pay a price for compensation, please spare me. The Wuxiang elder, seeing Luo Feng becoming anxious, no longer cared about his dignity, for if his body died, he would be expelled from infinite space. Earning an entry slot once was tremendously hard. Luo Feng looked at him. Let's talk? Against ordinary opponents, Luo Feng was indeed merciful and would have let them go for compensation. Unfortunately, you are one of the 3 sovereigns of Shi Kingdom. You are my master's archenemy. No. A treasure worth 1 million merit points. I can give you treasures worth 5 million merit points. Everything is negotiable. Why do you deceive me so? Luo He, very well, I remember this. The 36 blade lights revolved around him, merely slaughtering for more than 10 breaths of time. The Wuxiang elder's body of flame finally completely extinguished, and at the moment of extinguishment, the Wuxiang elder stared at Luo Feng with a crazed look in his eyes. Luo Feng looked at him, yet remained very calm. This was just an appetizer. You and I, we have now met, Luo Feng murmured softly. This was his first interaction with one of the 3 sovereigns of Shi Kingdom. Shi Kingdom, Wuxiang City. The Grand Palace, countless guards and servants, a strictly organized system. Luo He. An angry, deep voice came from the depths of the palace, even spreading throughout the entire palace, causing the disciples, guards, and servants within to change color. Such terrifying aura was obviously that of the Wuxiang elder. Seems like the elder has erupted in fury. Does it have something to do with Luo He? Inside the palace, everyone held their breath, everyone could sense the elder's immense anger. In a large hall deep within the palace, the Wuxiang elder's eyes were bloodshot with burning anger. To actually destroy my opportunity in the treasure land, the Wuxiang elder choked with indignation and fury. He still had over 20 reward points left to exchange, and having been rooted in infinite space for a long enough time, he could have accumulated more points to exchange for more precious resources. He paid a great price just for the chance to enter. Now, it was all ruined. I was even willing to apologize, but he didn't give me a chance, the elder fumed with extreme anger. In reality, in the land of origin, the origin great Tao is not sealed. This Luo his strength will only be stronger. He truly isn't afraid of me. But, elder, I am not afraid of you either. Even if you become an overlord in the future, what of it? The Wuxiang elder was also more powerful in reality, an extreme existence in the first realm of Godly King, unafraid even when facing the second realm of Godly King. I don't believe you have no weaknesses. Those close to you by your side, they have no weaknesses. The Wuxiang elder's eyes were cold. You destroyed my opportunity, you have to pay the price. I need all the information about Luo He. All the information on his close associates, disciples. The Wuxiang elder never thought of enduring and immediately bought this information at the Two Realms Palace. Chu capital, in a quiet room inside Luo Feng's cave dwelling, within the Star Tower. Luo Feng was in meditation. This time in infinite space, although I killed the Wuxiang elder's body and cut off his opportunity in infinite space, his strength should not be underestimated, thought Luo Feng. The opponent had indeed mastered a Godly King-level secret technique on the new path, it was just that he encountered me. With my godly body, avatar, and blade formation, all aspects of my understanding allowed it to be one-sided. My great Tao of life and death ultimately hasn't developed a complete branch of the Tao. If I become too arrogant, I might end up like the Wuxiang elder and hit a snag, Luo Feng thought, aware that infinite space concealed various powerful ancient beings who might have developed new branches of the Tao. I will continue cultivating silently for 100 eras, accumulate enough depth, and can then consume the primordial crystal spirit fruit again. This time, I can also use that bottle of clearing spirit liquid, Luo Feng decided. The clearing spirit liquid, Luo Feng had inquired about its value from his master Emperor Chu, knowing that it was worth even more than a primordial crystal spirit fruit. Even the elite of the imperial clan only receive a portion occasionally. It was Emperor Chu Yu who had given it to Luo Feng. A bottle of clearing spirit liquid was just one portion. Who? Luo Feng took out a primordial crystal spirit fruit and began to eat it, with a golden bottle also placed alongside. Accumulate normally, once accumulated enough, then consume treasures. With the help of treasures. To advance further. The effect of the primordial crystal spirit fruit is still so miraculous, Luo Feng felt his soul nourished, his thought speed greatly accelerated, then he picked up the golden bottle next to him, pulled out the cork, and drank it all in one gulp. The clearing spirit liquid spread naturally as soon as it entered his mouth, naturally affecting the soul. This? Luo Feng was stunned. Although he had learned about some of the uses of the clearing spirit liquid from his master, Luo Feng was still somewhat astonished at this moment. The primordial crystal spirit fruit was miraculous, but it only increased the speed of thought by 20 or 30 times, while maintaining an extremely high state of comprehension. But the clearing spirit liquid, it mainly targets the soul. It was a cleansing of the soul, washing away many distracting thoughts. In the infinite space of that treasure land, when clashing wills with those spiritual beings, one is often contaminated by their spirits. I have repeatedly cleansed those contaminations and honed myself, Luo Feng murmured in a low voice, but in fact, it is relatively easy to cleanse external contaminations. Cleansing one's own distracting thoughts is much more difficult. Before coming to the infinite space, I had long been practicing the great destruction heart refining technique to hone myself, but the progress was extremely slow. However, with this clearing spirit liquid, during the effect of the spiritual liquid, one can continuously cleanse away one's own distracting thoughts. The soul is the core of a cultivator. As the soul began deep cleansing, Luo Feng realized the benefits of this state. My distracting thoughts are indeed too numerous. With the help of the clearing spirit liquid, Luo Feng quickly sorted through his endless myriad thoughts from over the years, which also formed his conscious awareness. As these thoughts were chaotic, his heart was also in chaos. However, these thoughts are also a part of Luo Feng. The so-called removal of distracting thoughts is not an erasure. If completely erased, then it would be removing a part of one's self. While erasing a part of one's self-awareness is a form of cultivation, Luo Feng was not willing to choose this method. The true removal of distracting thoughts is a form of organization. Organizing the countless thoughts into different systems. Some thoughts, when cultivating the great Tao of life origin, are distractions, yet when cultivating the great Tao of destruction origin, they can be an aid. Some thoughts are key to making the spiritual will more determined. But they may not necessarily be beneficial to cultivation. Thoughts do not have a simple dichotomy of good or bad. Even at a certain moment, a change in spiritual cognition can immediately affect countless thoughts. The past cleansing of the soul, the cognition of the spirit, can be completely overturned in an instant. Therefore, as one's spiritual will progresses, it becomes increasingly difficult to enhance. The clearing spirit liquid, it's as if it has allowed me to enter a higher status to observe my countless thoughts and rehone my spirit, Luo Feng said, as he preliminarily cleansed his thoughts for the first time with the aid of the spiritual liquid. Let's take another look at the Calamity Beast diagram. The body far in the infinite space opened the Calamity Beast diagram given by Emperor Ming. Emperor Ming, a cultivator of the primordial bloodline and an emperor, yet his spiritual will was calm and unwavering, very composed. He did not possess the typical unrestrained and frenzied emotions common to the primordial bloodline system, and his spiritual will was also the most terrifying Luo Feng had ever seen. It was far beyond him, undoubtedly a will beyond the ultimate realm of God King. Whoosh! The black-red scroll slowly unrolled. Confronted with the dark and frenzied aura, Luo Feng saw a depiction of a calamity beast unlike any he had ever seen before. What is this? Luo Feng, with just a preliminary look, determined, this painting corresponds to the 5th to 10th layers of the 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram. The Calamity Beast diagram sold externally, even when combined with the Void diagram for viewing, could demonstrate the complete 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram. But it only contained some superficial flavor. The Tribulation Beast image, though more authentic, offered Luo Feng only limited enlightenment. This painting. Luo Feng was shocked upon seeing it. Although it only correlated with 6 layers of the complete 3000 Void Calamity Beast diagram, its artistic conception was many times more intense. In a daze, Luo Feng saw the powerless catastrophe beast, cautiously seeking powerful companions, but being sent by them on life-threatening ventures to hunt for food. In the end, all the food was consumed by the powerful companions, not sharing a bite with it. At this moment it was too weak and had to seek protection from powerful companions. It learned to please the strong, to make friends, to hunt the weak, to eat secretly until full. But those it called companions, those it called prey, they too wanted to hunt it, and through strength or luck, it survived numerous calamities and quickly grew stronger. Whether in strength or in spirit, it was becoming stronger. The weak catastrophe beast. Luo Feng saw the most struggling period of the catastrophe beast. During this time, the beast was so weak that there were too many things that could kill it. Exploited by the strong, it had to endure it. Because the slightest dissatisfaction would lead to its death and consumption. Prey could turn around and kill it. Death lurked everywhere. In the darkness, honing oneself, whether it be one's inner spirit or external strength, both are becoming stronger. Luo Feng glimpsed the hidden method of spiritual will cultivation within this painting. This method of spiritual will cultivation was the greatest insight Emperor Ming had from observing the shadow of the catastrophe beast, creating a unique method of spiritual cultivation. The Calamity Beast diagram he externally transmitted was just the most superficial. It seemed to be a complete Calamity Beast diagram, but blindly aiming for completeness, in the end, made it inferior. A small segment of the shadow of the catastrophe beast provided the deepest stimulation to Emperor Ming, perfectly matching his own growth. He had the deepest comprehension, constantly painting, and later deduced a method of spiritual cultivation from it. It was only to cultivators he deemed worthy that he was willing to give out the truly core Calamity Beast diagram. He hadn't misjudged Luo Feng. Luo Feng rose from weakness, experiencing life and death struggles from a young age, able to empathize with such a state of mind. Although not as cruel as the catastrophe beast's environment, there was still resonance. Thus, Luo Feng's spirit had already merged into the painting, transforming into the catastrophe beast, experiencing the dark trials. In weakness, sometimes there's no way out, one can only seek life within death. Weakness is the original sin. Interests are what's eternal. The experiences with the catastrophe beast had been even more dark and brutal, hardening Luo Feng's spirit even more. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Shi Kingdom, Wuxiang City. Where did this Luo he come from? With no family or tribe, close only to an old servant named Luo Sa, a man named Yuan, and a disciple called Mu Qingyang, pondered the ancestor of Wuxiang. Could he be the reincarnation of some old codger? But there has been no word of any historical figure who cultivated the three-origin great Tao of life, destruction, and matter, the ancestor of Wuxiang mused. In infinite space, it's even possible that he could develop a fourth branch of the origin great Tao. Ancient beings almost always focused on a single great Tao. Cultivating three great Tao? In the land of origin, such godly kings were extremely rare. Each one was a figure of lofty reputation, and there had never been any news of their fall. If he's not a reincarnation, then his talent must be truly exceptional. Having no family or tribe suggests two possibilities. He's either concealing his identity and his people, or he comes from the primordial cosmos, with his tribe remaining in his homeland, the ancestor of Wuxiang speculated. Although cultivators from the primordial cosmos were rare in the land of origin, because each had climbed up from the very bottom, their potential was enormous. Among ancient existences, quite a few had emerged from the primordial cosmos. Yuan lives in Xiangjie City, right by Luo his side. Luo Sa and Mo Yu Qingyang, on the other hand, currently outside. The ancestor of Wuxiang's gaze grew ice-cold. One old servant and one disciple, they must mean quite a bit to you, huh? For interrupting the opportunities of my infinite space, I shall mete out a small punishment, exterminating one servant and one disciple of yours. When I find your tribe in the future, I will wipe out your entire clan. The ancestor of Wuxiang's intent to kill was intense. As a non-imperial clan godly king at the First Realm, he had paid countless prices and even used up some of his favors with the Emperor of Qiankuan to get this opportunity. He'd even been willing to offer compensation, but Luo he wouldn't let it go and insisted on destroying his body and cutting off his opportunity. Shadow Sky Realm. The ancestor of Wuxiang immediately reached out to a highly mysterious power in the land of origin, Shadow Sky Realm. Godly King Wuxiang, whom do you want to deal with? Responded Shadow Sky Realm. Shadow Sky Realm, the #1 assassination force in the land of origin. No one knew who its internal members were, only that within Shadow Sky Realm, an Emperor-level combatant had once taken action, shocking the entire land of origin and making everyone aware of the terrifying power of Shadow Sky Realm. Because publicly known emperors and monarchs only existed within the two ancient countries, Shadow Sky Realm could deploy an Emperor-level combatant. Could this mysterious existence be one of the emperors or monarchs from the ancient countries? Or some other enigmatic powerhouse? No matter what, it affirmed the status of Shadow Sky Realm. Great Saint Luo he has one servant named Luo Sa and one disciple named Mo Yu Qingyang. I require your Shadow Sky Realm to assassinate the pair, the ancestor of Wuxiang transmitted his message. Do you need us to attempt an assassination on Great Saint Luo he? Though he has an avatar in Chu capital, we have a 50% chance of success, said Shadow Sky Realm. The ancestor of Wuxiang inquired, what's the price? Since he has an avatar in Chu capital, it demands the action of our highest tier members. The cost will be 1,000 primordial crystals or an equivalent value, stated Shadow Sky Realm. Just to clarify in advance, with only a 50% chance of success, no treasures will be refunded if we fail. 1,000 primordial crystals. The ancestor of Wuxiang's heart trembled at the price. Was this a price he, the godly king at the First Realm, could afford to hear? Just kill Luo his servant and disciple, said the ancestor of Wuxiang. His servant Luo Sa is at the primal chaos realm. Eliminating him requires 500 billion cosmic sand. His disciple Mo Yu Qingyang is an eternal true god. As Luo his only direct disciple, killing him will cost 100 billion cosmic sand. Servant Luo Sa might be a reincarnation, Shadow Sky Realm pointed out. If you are willing to spend 500 billion cosmic sand, we can request our upper echelon to obliterate all of Luo Sa's avatars with a single thought. Of course, according to the rules of Shadow Sky Realm, all assassinations might fail, and no fees will be refunded, stated Shadow Sky Realm. The ancestor of Wuxiang wasn't surprised. Shadow Sky Realm might not have pleasant speech, but their credibility in their operations was well established. The price wasn't steep. As long as sufficient benefits were provided, Shadow Sky Realm would undoubtedly send enough strength to carry out the assassination. No need, 600 billion cosmic sand will do, said the ancestor of Wuxiang. That sum wasn't so painful for him to part with. But 500 billion cosmic sand? The ancestor of Wuxiang had to weigh that carefully. With such a massive expense, he was contemplating taking action himself. As an exalted figure, he had his pride to consider. Specifically targeting someone to kill a primal chaos realm being and an eternal true god, him doing so would be a blow to his reputation. Hence, he let Shadow Sky Realm handle it. After all, Shadow Sky Realm wasn't bothered by dirty or tiring tasks. Please make an immediate payment of 600 billion cosmic sand. Once we receive it, we will act at once, said Shadow Sky Realm. Meanwhile, in the treasure land of infinite space, Luo Feng was engrossed in comprehending the Calamity Beast diagram when suddenly a mark in the palm of his left hand flashed. HM? Luo Feng took notice of it. The mark on his palm was transmitting information. His evaluation had been updated. Trialist, Luo Feng of the Land of Origin. For battling with Emperor-level secret techniques, new evaluation of the Great Tao, average. Reward points, 100. You have not opened a new branch of the Great Tao, more effort is needed. As a being of the primal chaos realm, reaching the will of the ultimate realm of God King, evaluation of spiritual will, high grade. Reward points, 10,000. Your spiritual will is quite outstanding, please continue to maintain it after becoming a godly king. Total reward points, 10,192.34. When Luo Feng initially comprehended the first Emperor-level secret technique of the Great Tao of Life and Death, he received 100 reward points. After that, he comprehended many more Emperor-level secret techniques but didn't receive any additional rewards. Will of the ultimate realm of God King? Luo Feng smiled. Clearly, by the standards of infinite space, he had finally reached the threshold of the ultimate realm of God King's will. That's a high reward. Luo Feng was somewhat astonished, a full 10,000 points. Having been in infinite space for so long, Luo Feng had accumulated a total of 10,100 points from spiritual will, 100 points from new branches of the Great Tao, and 22.34 points from killing native life forms. He had earned a total of 10,222.34 points. Having spent 30 points to exchange for world life form, he was left with 10,192.34 points. I've suddenly become so much richer. Luo Feng felt that breakthroughs in opening new branches of the Great Tao and advancing spiritual will were the best ways to earn reward points, far surpassing the killing of native life forms. This episode is end here.